Hey, welcome to the Kingdom Entrepreneur Launch Plan, episode one. Woohoo, episode one. That's awesome. My reasoning for doing this is simply to give you some of the insight that I've got over running a multiple, owning a business that actually brings in multiple seven figures for ministries and clients every year. There's some stuff that I continually come up against, and I want to just give you my wisdom on it. And yeah, today we're gonna look at pricing. It's probably the biggest question I get is around pricing. How do you price something? How do you deal with people that can't afford it, and all that? So I've developed this sort of three tier. It's like a three filter, right? Three filters for your offer, whatever it is you're offering, whether it's a widget or whether it's a mentorship, which is what I build for people. So I build people mentorships, and some people who have a lot of reach, like who have got large email lists or a medium-sized email list and a good-sized following on social media. So maybe a reach of 1,000, 2,000 people plus every week and an email list of sort of 1,000 people, then they can definitely really fund their ministry well. But for those that are starting off, it's also a great tool to build something because if it's something that's built, then they can continue to run with it. But for my mentorship stuff, it's actually a high ticket item. It's what we call a high ticket item. It's not a $10 a month, $20 a month Patreon kind of thing. It's $2,000 a year. I want you to come into my world a little bit, and I'll try to explain exactly how we come up with those prices, what's a fair way to look at prices, because realistically, honesty wins. Like honesty wins, integrity wins. Being ethical and impactful is really more important than ever in these days. It's more important than I think it's ever been in my lifetime. So whether you're a coach, an entrepreneur making widgets, you're a consultant, you're a creative professional, whatever it is, the integrity of your offer determines your reputation, and your reputation will determine the long-term success of your business. So let me introduce you to the three filter offer test. And if you stay on, I will post this in the chat here just for everybody who shows up live. But I'll post the link to a document that you can download. It's on Dropbox. You don't need an account. It'll try to get you to create an account. You don't need an account. Just click download anyway. So let me introduce you to this three filter offer test, and we will have time to have questions at the end. So you can put those in the chat. You can only chat with me. Nobody else will see your questions. So be free to just drop your questions in if we have time at the end, which we should do. So trust is the foundation for everything we do. People will not buy stuff from you if they don't trust you. They might not trust the product, which is a whole separate thing, but really trust is your most valuable asset. So building trust with people. That's why we do things like this. That's why we post on social media, is to build trust with people so that it's not just some rando that you're giving a bunch of money to. You will buy stuff off people that you trust. Like the purpose of social media is so that people know, like, and trust you. That's why we post. We don't post to sell. We might run ads to free things to sell, but we don't post to sell. It's why when people, hold up their books and say, "Hey, I bought a book," they're doing that on Facebook or Instagram. It doesn't sell because the purpose of social media is so that people know, like, and trust you, right? If you make an offer that is ethical and priced correctly, you will convert. You'll actually convert because satisfied customers will say, "This is worth every penny. This has been worth everything." And then you also get personal financial peace, because one of the pitfalls, there's always two ditches in every decision. One of the pitfalls, one of the ditches is that we can just make everything for free. And what we end up doing is we burn out. We can't live indoors anymore. We're struggling for money, et cetera, et cetera. And I've seen that so many times. And of course, I get my marketing head on, so I can confuse things a little bit because what I can end up doing is saying, well, it all depends if you're going for a warm audience or a cold audience. But realistically, giving things for free all the time will leave you broke. And again, I trust the Lord. We've lived by faith for most of our lives, most of our married lives. Rachel and I are married 37 years, and we've lived by faith for most of that time. And I will tell you now that even running a business does not stop you living by faith. So, anyway, let me give you an overview of this three filter framework. This is kind of how it works. You have to do a price test with it. So, here's what I would recommend you do a price test. And when you're pricing things, it's important to remember that the price that someone pays is determined by the buyer, not the seller. So we have a lot of dysfunction in what I refer to as the boss babe and the manosphere kind of stuff that's out there, which is like, well, I'm worth millions and I want to get millions and I want to get as much money as I possibly can because I'm worth it. That's great. The problem is you don't determine worth. The buyer determines worth. The buyer will always determine how much they're prepared to pay. If you want to, we just went out last week and bought my wife a new iPhone. And oh my goodness, it's the first iPhone she's bought in 5 years. And they are so expensive. But we bought it because the value to us is there. The value of keeping connected, the value of communicating is definitely there. So we have to, for a moment, when we're pricing something, enter into the mindset of our ideal customer, client, consumer, whatever it is you're producing. We have to enter into that and say, are they getting value? Now, traditionally, how we do pricing is we do it, it's largely, the roots of it are in Marxism, where what we do is we have the cost of goods sold, we have the labor costs, and then we build in a very small profit margin. And the real value is in the labor in that sort of model. And then we get a lot of pushback because if the profit gets a little bit larger, then people are like, people get very angry. I don't use that model. I use the model of value that we have to enter in and say, what value am I giving you? Right? What is the actual value that I'm going to give you for this? So let me give you an example. If I'm running a 24-hour, this is a real life example that I know exists. If I'm running a 24-hour marriage retreat targeting executives of companies who are busy and overworked and don't spend time with their family, and the real pain point for them is their marriage. If I run a 24-hour marriage retreat and it helps them solve their marital problems, how much is that worth to them? That's not a like $79 product. That's a thousands, maybe even five figures of a product. And I know a guy who runs it, and I think at the minute it's 7.5 grand per person, so 15 grand per couple to go away for 24 hours and actually dig into their marriage. So one of the things is that it might not be immediate value. So what I recommend you doing is give a 10-year value. If over 10 years, I'm not 10xing the price that you have paid, then it's not worth it. So if I offer you a product that's $2,000 and you're not getting what would be the equivalent of 10 times that, so $20,000 worth of value, and that $20,000 of value can be difficult to work out if you're training people in the prophetic, if you're selling widgets, et cetera, you're going to have to place yourself into the mindset of your ideal client, what we call an avatar, your ideal avatar. And from that sort of base, what their value is really going to be after 10 years. Are they going to get the maximum? Are they going to get 10 times the value after 10 years? And if you do that, then you're actually able to provide or ensure exponential value, whether it's a mentorship. If I teach you how to run a mentorship and that mentorship brings in $1,000, then you shouldn't be paying more than $100 for that. if it's $1,000 over 10 years. Highly unlikely it would only be $1,000 over 10 years, but you get my point. Hopefully you get my point. It's a very ethical way of just putting yourself into someone's shoes, saying, what's the value that this person is going to get after 10 years? Divide that by 10 and you've got a fair price. Restored marriages, right? Confidence in hearing God. Like if you're spiritually coaching, the outcome is lasting clarity, direction, and peace. What's that worth to someone? Now, a lot of people are trained to believe that this is a cost instead of an investment. And that's kind of one of the things we have to walk people through, that this is actually an investment in your future. It's not a cost, right? And I would never encourage people to go into debt. I would never encourage people to starve their families just to pay for something. But just at the outset, if you doubt that your offer meets the 10 times threshold, don't worry. Adjust your promise or increase the value. Right? Adjust the promise or increase the value. And as a last resort, then reduce your price. Okay. So the second filter is making sure it's win-win. All right. You have to make sure it's win-win. And this is particularly pertinent to those of us that are used to giving away stuff for free. So my clients have to win. If my clients can't win, then I need to rework what the offer is. So when I started my business, I was building mentorships for people and saying, hey, I can make you money. And then we had one or two clients, not 100, but one or two clients who weren't making money. It's like, okay, I need to redo my offer. And what we did is said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to build you a mentorship, and you're going to be able to run that yourself. You're going to be able to bring people in when you're traveling, speaking, emailing, podcasting, and you're going to say, hey, join my mentorship. And as long as you've got that, then we've actually created a product that you can just keep rolling and rolling. So the client has to win, right? You can't say, hey, I'm offering this for $10,000 and the client won't win, right? And again, that's you putting yourself into their shoes and trying to figure out what their win is. And that's really, really important when you're creating something, is making sure you know what their win is, right? Their win might be saving time. Their win might be saving tech headaches. Their win might be something completely different. But you have to make sure it wins. But it also has to win for you, right? It can't be doing stuff for free all the time and you end up getting burnt out. It has to win for you. Like I tell people, my wife and I have a lifestyle preference, and our preference is to live indoors. We like to live indoors. I realize we have options, but I like to live indoors. So that means it has to be a win for me. Now, again, ethics are really important. So it can't be greed. Greed is condemned in scripture. We cannot partner with greed. This sort of, manosphere, boss babe, I want to have millions. Like it just turns people off. But like having that kind of mindset turns people off and will keep you broke. Instead of going into it with humility and saying, okay, like with humility, I want to be able to provide for my family, my children, and my grandchildren, because those are biblical principles. So the second filter is it needs to be win-win. I don't know if you're familiar with this. I'm actually 80% there with a book that I'm coming out and I'm writing, and the book is called Why Ministry Keeps You Broke and How to Fix It. Like the Apostle Paul addresses the whole notion of pricing thoroughly in 1 Corinthians 9, that he has a right to be paid for ministry. And even though he may not choose to exercise that right, which he goes on to say, the right is still there. The right still exists to be paid for ministry. And he references this scripture about muzzling the ox. And it's one of the most debated laws that there is in the Old Testament, is muzzling the ox, because they would try to come up with ways, can I feed it before it goes in the field? What if I put a thorn in its mouth and it wasn't able to chew? Are they okay as long as I don't muzzle it? And there are pages and pages and pages written on this. in the Talmud and the Midrash, all about, what the rules of muzzling the ox are. And of course, Paul goes on to say, is this just for animals? Of course not. Of course, the principle is not just for animals. It's for ministers of the gospel. So it has to win for you. And I realized that a bunch of us, I've had to come a long way on that journey of giving myself permission to earn money as a minister. So make sure it feels like a win. So here's how you do that. After setting your price, imagine being your ideal client. Would you be delighted and grateful to pay, knowing that the transformation, what you get, is real? Then flip the script. As the business owner, does this deal leave you excited, confident, and able to improve what you offer? That's very important. You need to grow, not just stay at the one level. And offers that pass this test will produce testimonials, renewals, and referrals. All of my business at the minute comes from referrals, because what we do is we make real good offers. So if you're muzzled, you've no margin. If you're exploiting people, then you've no value. Your product has no value. And the third one is the say it out loud test. Say it out loud, right? Say this thing out loud. Literally whisper to yourself, the price is X amount of dollars, and watch for your emotional and physical responses. If you feel shame, it's probably a fear or poverty mindset at play. If you feel sick to your stomach or deeply hesitant, your offer might not be aligned. Okay, so if you feel shame, it's probably your fear or orphan spirit. If you feel sick to your stomach, deeply hesitant, then your offer might not be aligned. Now, one of the things I also recommend is that you have some way of dealing with people that can't afford it. So you have a piece of the puzzle that is, okay, if people now, when I say can't afford it, I don't mean they would need to cut back on eating out, or they'd need to cut back on their technological spend or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people that need to make a sacrifice. I'm talking about people that genuinely cannot afford it. And I would suggest that before you do anything, that you have some way of addressing that concern with people. Whether it's this time around, I can give 2 scholarships, whether it's this time around, if they volunteer for me, they can attend the event for free. If they serve, they can attend the event for free if it's an event. But we do scholarships, and if someone wants to fund a scholarship, they can do that. But have some plan in place so that when people say, hey, I'm on disability, I can't afford to do this. Now, the reality is, for my product, is that if someone can't afford $50 a month to run an email program, they're not going to be successful. They're just not. If they can't afford the $200 a year for a website, access to web building, then they're probably not going to be able to run with it anyway. So, what I do in that case is I offer some stuff for free. I offer, different courses that I have for free so that people can afford it. But if you have any questions, put them down at the bottom. I am going to share in the chat the link to this. It's a PDF that you can download, and it will go through what I've just chatted about, and you'll always have it as a reference. You'll always have it as a guide. I am running a 3-hour workshop, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. You'll probably get some emails about it. It's 3 hours for anybody that's interested in actually building their own online mentorship. We're going to build it at a high level so that you can execute it from there on. We'll talk about going after your ideal avatar, going after your ideal client, building it out, what it is you want to teach, what it is you want to bring out. But you'll get more details on that as the time goes on. But if there's no chats, thanks for joining.